Hello there everybody. We've got a little bit of that Armageddon style combat today. Lord Commissar leading some Imperial Guard forces fighting up against orcs on a desert. I can't wait to see the carnage. You know there's going to be carnage. Now unfortunately my Cyrillic is a little bit lacking. At least for now. So I have no idea who this player is. And unfortunately, I downloaded this replay a long time ago, and I'm only just getting around to it now, so I do not know who this player is. I'm just gonna have to call him the Commissar. Please tell me in the comments who the fuck this player is. And he's gonna be facing up against Saibot. I think Saibot was the one who sent this in. So this is gonna be an interesting game insofar as I don't really know the skill level of this player. Saibot is mid-high, so we'll see. Very aggressive early on, which I actually like on this map for this reason. The distance from your base to the power farm is super low, so if you do get a nice early timing push, you can just bash the power node, and that's going to delay the gens for the IG for quite some time. And, you know, IG does like to get its gens up pretty early because it wants to get those tier 1.5 out ASAP. It wants to get Cadishans out, and they're quite a lot of power. So destroying that power node early on, pretty nice. Now this is a bit of a misplay here from Saibot. Overextends the commander knob way too close. What he should have done, whilst the shooters were finishing this bash, Saibot should have moved to here with the K-knob and then positioned him inside the garrison. The K-knob in the garrison here is a fucking nightmare early on for IG. Especially if he gets aggro on the guardsmen and starts peeling them off. Oh my god. It's pretty brutal if that happens.
Sir, power node is ready.
Now, I say overall that was a pretty big win for Saibot. He managed to delay the gens for quite some time. You see the power node is only just finished for the Commissar at this point. But of course the IG does get the better edge in terms of map control, and I believe, well, maybe bleed, I don't know, I don't think Saibot bled much there at all, but of course IG didn't bleed whatsoever, they didn't lose any guardsmen. But it's only natural, you know, you can't expect to be bleeding the IG more than you're going to bleed as an orc in the early game, so you've got to play around that. Really nice attempt here to focus down the Sentinel, using triple shooters all under wire, giving them a damage and a speed buff, and just charging straight past the guardsman. It's a little bit all in though. The Sentinel unfortunately does get away with a sliver of health, 21 HP, not a lot of HP when you're facing this much Daka. And unfortunately it kind of does backfire against Saibot because now he's bleeding quite a lot. You know, he probably will win this fight. Oh god, he might not even win it. He might not even win this, you know. Wow. Close. But the problem is that the IG bled nothing. Literally nothing. He hasn't lost a single model yet. Saibot just bled like crazy. Crazy. So that's not great. Cadishans are now out, so Sluggers did a good job there, forcing off the guardsmen, but unfortunately, again, a bit of a miss micro from Saibot. He overextended them too deep. They should have pulled back earlier, started getting on some of these caps. And if the IG has been annoying with his guardsman micro, just use your line of sight blockers to get the melee charge. Once you get the melee charge, the guardsman can't kite you anymore. Unfortunately, overextended too much because now he ended up facing off against Cadishan Devils. And obviously, Cadishan Devils, very fearsome, anti-melee unit. They're decent in melee themselves, not amazing. I wouldn't like to send them into melee with Slugger Boys, but they can hold their own in melee. The problem is that they've got so many ways to disrupt the melee on approach and weaken them. And of course, if they weaken the melee with shotgun blasts and shotgun shots and old reliable explosions, well yeah, then they will easily beat the Sluggers in melee. Anyway, we're going to see a heavy weapons team now for the IG player, so we're seeing a very large tier 1 here. No investment in Commissar upgrades yet. I kind of expect to see one because when you go this heavy with your tier 1 as IG, you kind of do need to get a bit of a gem bash going. Especially when your opponent is rocking 3 naked shooter boys. No upgrades on these shooters as of yet. And no stomp on the Sentinel either. So these sluggers with Hide the Boys are putting in some huge amounts of work. Again, Saibot. Oh, Saibot's going to get the Sentinel. Oh, huge micro error from the Commissar there. I was about to say Saibot is making a mistake once again, committing his shooter boys too deep when there's so much map yet to be caught. And there is a gen farm. If he rotated this way and then looped around the bottom, he could proceed to get a gen bash. But it actually pays off for Saibot in that instance because of the micro mishap from the Commissar. Obviously clicking to send his sentinel somewhere up here, and instead of it going around this way, it takes the shorter route this way, and he was too slow to react, caught away from repairs, under the fire of 15 shooter boys. Didn't last long. So now the Commissar has actually invested more power than Saibot in tier 1, and he got his generators up a lot later because he invested more requisition in tier 1, and so he's behind in tech. But in spite of all of this, he only has 4 units to the 4 units of Saibot. This is a problem for the Commissar. But a problem for Saibot right now is the fact that he has the entire IG force in his retreat path. Particularly dangerous are the Kadashan Devils. Now, I don't know what the Commissar is doing, to be honest. He completely whiffed that. If he planted an IED here, right then, dude, he could have blown up an entire shoot boy squad. He could have killed like 7 models easily. And he didn't even force melee with the Kadashans either. They could have killed a couple at least. Now he's going to plant his IED instead of the gens, which does a little bit of damage to them all, but it's really not that big of a deal. Commander Nob looks like he's been abusing the garrison up top. Uses it to force off the Commissar. A bit of a shitty old reliable there, because this shooter blob was already going to be dealt with by the heavy weapons team. Really could have done with having... Oh, this is a major mistake from the Commissar. He did not have to retreat that heavy weapons team at all. They could have easily had enough time to reset up, and by the time the shooters got forward, they might have had enough time to get an explosive shot off with Kadashans. Yeah, just a poorly managed engagement there from the Commissar. If he hadn't old reliable the shooters, and he old reliable the sluggers and then focus fired them, the heavy weapons team would suppress the entire shooter blob, the sluggers would die before they could get into melee, and it'd be basically a full gen bash. So, a big opportunity missed from the Commissar there. Now, Saibot could have actually used Hide the Boys to negate that completely. I don't know though if he had the red at the time. Can't remember if it's like 100 red or 75 red or how much red the Hide the Boys is. If he approached this way, of course Kadashans can detect, but the detection range is lower than normal sight range anyway, so it would have given the time to get in, and by the time Commissar realised, it'd have been too late. So a couple of misplays here and there, but hey, he's got the Hide the Boys off cooldown, so he's going to use it now. Kadashans are there though. Yeah, Kadashans are there. Unfortunate. Honestly, a little bit greedy from Saibot just to assume he could just walk straight in and the Kadashans wouldn't be there. Just lazy play really. He should have made some sort of flank just in case, so if you get detected you don't get suppressed instantly by the heavy weapons team. And at least it requires some sort of fast reaction from Commissar to use his Kadashans and knock them away, but there you go. So the blind tank busters comes out for Saibot. I would strongly consider swapping to a Ogrin squad instead of the Chimera at this point, if I'm honest with you. Look, you're playing as the Commissar, so you get loads of buffs for your Ogrins, well you get Aura of Discipline, right? Bionic Eye can make Ogrins go pretty insane as well. And you can heal yourself with Stubbornness, so you get that lovely combo with the Commissar. You've got triple shooters that you're fighting. I mean, shooters do basically no damage to Ogrins because they're super heavy infantry. And then the tank busters don't do anything to them either, so that you make that purchase redundant. You've only got one melee squad to fight. You're not playing a mech who can give battery pack to the melee squad. You're not playing a war boss who can beat your Ogrins with melee. I think Ogrins right now would be amazing. Better than this Chimera, I mean. Evidently, the Chimera is completely unable to prevent the bash here, whereas Ogrins would have just ran in and forced off the busters easily. And that would be the weakness of going for blind purchases of tank busters, you know. The Chimera could come up later, or you could just not go for a Chimera at all. You could go for Ogrins and Psyker. You could go for Ogrins and Stormtroopers, so... I don't like the blind tank buster play, but the Commissar has kind of enabled it by just purchasing a Chimera mindlessly after seeing tank busters in a truck, you know? Doesn't really make any sense. So VP so far favouring the Commissar quite badly. A little bit of a micro mishap here from Saibot. He assumed that the tank busters had already got in the truck, but clearly they hadn't, so he drops 3 tank busters quite unnecessarily there. Obviously he moved his truck away a little bit too soon, prior to them embarking, and all of the shooters are now forced off. Okay, sluggers are going to take a tango with the Kadashans. Yeah, they don't want it. They got their knob, obviously makes them a lot better in melee, but the problem is Kadashans got those abilities off on them. They've now got loyal to the end as well, buffing up their damage and their HP every time a bottle dies. But the Kadashans need to be careful, they're getting shot by the Commando, and I don't think the Commissar has noticed. No, he hasn't. Yes, he has. They just retreated at the last minute. Wow, that was clutch. Holy shit. They're actually losing HP as the loyal to the end wears off. Wow. That was kind of scary. Like, they started retreating at 11 HP and ended up with 7 HP before they actually... Before they got to the base. But it was weird because they weren't getting shot at. So I guess your troops can die. Can they die from that? The loss of HP? Surely not. I don't know. I've never even noticed that before. 11 years later. Anyway, this scrap is not looking very nice for the IG. Obviously the Guardsmen can reinforce off of the Chimera, but this is just too much Dakka. They're just shooting through the reinforcements. Chimera for some reason is turned around, exposing its rear armor to the tank busters, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, honestly, Commissar is just not playing very well right now, if I'm honest with you. Guardsmen bleed like crazy, just not a lot of bleed coming in onto the Orc forces here. Truck is on a tiny amount of HP, probably wants to get some grots out to deal with this, because honestly the sluggers need to go around capping the map. There isn't too much time for repairs, but the way things are looking right now, it's looking pretty good for Saibot, I'd say. He's done a great job bashing this generator farm with his tank busters as well, so even if Commissar manages to get tier 3, oh, now the Ogring has come out? A little bit late with that, mate. Jeez. The Chimera has done fucking jack shit. Like, seriously, it's not done anything. And don't get me wrong, Commissar has not used it well at all, but it really hasn't done anything. If he got Ogrins earlier instead of the Chimera, I think he'd be in an amazing position. Only one gen on Saibot's gen farm, which I find a little bit odd. Given that he's going tier 3, I guess he can get Commandos super cheap using the global bar, and even without the global bar, Commandos are pretty damn cheap anyway in terms of power. No, disembarking there, really silly idea. Yeah, it just dooms the Chimera, because unfortunately units have to stop moving in order to disembark. I do apologise for not going on offline mode, guys. I always forget. I go on invisible. For some reason that doesn't turn off the Steam notifications, which is very annoying. So unfortunately, choosing to disembark the troops there, it does doom the Chimera and he gets taken out by the tank busters. But honestly, it wasn't doing fucking anything anyway, so it's less upkeep for the Commissar. It might even be for the better at this point. Little bit of a curious choice there to use the Love to Dakka before the incendiary bomb. Definitely a mistake. If Saibot chucked his incendiary bomb first and then used Love to Dakka there, then both the Guardsmen would have to retreat. There's no question about it. I mean, you can see the damage on that Guardsman squad even with Loyal to the End being used to give them way more HP. Pretty huge. Trying to combine it with the shotgun blast ability from the Commander Knob, what's it called? High explosive shells to wipe the Guardsman squad, but not allowed to get close enough, unfortunately. He has to use it on the Ogrins, which really doesn't do a whole lot. Ogrins is such a good pick right now. Really disappointed to not see him get them earlier in this matchup. They were perfect. You know, when you're only facing one Slugger Boy squad and you're against a Commando Knob who is by far the least impressive in terms of melee power. I mean, obviously the mech can't fight in melee himself, but he can support his melee troops so well with a bubble shield, knocking your shit over, so they can kill him in retreat, even with battery pack, etc, etc. Commander Nob just can't. All he can do is infiltrate them, really. So the Ogryns would just dominate. You just seen twice what that high explosive shells does to the Ogryns. It doesn't do anything. Commissar, is he still naked? Yeah, he is. So he's got no chance against those sluggers. If he had his claw and the tanky melee armor, might have a chance. Because he is the same level as them, so he would actually be proccing specials. Okay, a little bit of pew pew going out here, doing good damage to the sluggers, all reliable, preventing the cap. VPs are pretty even, to be honest. And Saibot's got to tier 3, but he has no power, so that's good. And basically, Commissar is making a bit of a comeback right now. Mostly off the power of the Ogryns, I dare say. I mean, to be fair, Saibot's troops are extremely weak. He still hasn't upgraded any of these shooters, which I find super interesting. I get not going for the Nob leaders because you want to minimize your pop costs so that you have reduced upkeep, but not getting the big shooters I find very odd. I mean, even just getting a big shooter right now to aim in what stat onto the Ogryns to slow them down would be quite nice. You see right there, just instantly forces off to the shooter boys. Old reliable, into the Ogryns, turning around into the commandos, they gotta go. Yeah. The Commissar is doing really well in the engagements now. So all this time, he's had the triple gens up, and he is slowly building up a nice stockpile of power in the back. Obviously, not going to get to tier 3 anytime soon, but if he can get to tier 3 and can get an Execution Lehman Russ out, ooh, he'll be in a good spot. Granted, maybe Kassakin will be better actually. I mean, you do have tank busters already. Not really a threat on their own to a tank, but then you have another commando squad and another commando squad, both of whom have squad leaders which do the equivalent damage of 3 tank busters with their single rocket launcher. And then of course the Commander Nob himself can get an extremely powerful rocket launcher in tier 3. So yeah, thinking about all that, that is kind of a scary amount of AV even for an IG tank. I think maybe just cheap Kassakin could be very useful. Now the alternative play that Saibot can make right now is to go for a Psyker, support his Ogryns in melee, get some nice disruption against the ranged blobs, protect against these sluggers. The problem is that I guess with Hide the Boys, if the Psyker is isolated, you can kill him quite easily with the slugger boys. You'd have to basically keep the Psyker near the Cadishans at all times.
Understood. Upgrading tech. Happy to be of service. Sir, our advantage is slight.
Okay, well we got the tier 3 coming, which makes sense. I mean, he's been stockpiling that power for a reason, right? But the question is, what's he going to get in tier 3? I do think the Lehman Russ would be super risky. It is, you know, you can do it. With good global support, with Cadishans disrupting the ranged blobs, an Execution and Lehman Russ could definitely put in some huge work. Again, from Saibot, we see an instant love the Daka. A huge mistake. I don't know why he's not throwing the burner bombs first. Of course, normally the counter to burner bombs is the fact that they have a slow damage over time, so you just walk out of them, right, to avoid the damage. But if you're getting knocked over by Love the Daka, then you can't do that. You're forced to take the damage. And on high model squads like Guardsmen, they would melt. Look at how well the Ogryns just did. Even tangoing with the Slugger Boys, who are level 2, versus the Ogryns only with level 1. Knock them over with Use Your Head, stop them firing, stop them attacking, whilst you Guardsmen shoot on them. GG no re. You see, the damage that comes in from the las guns onto the Slugger Boys is pretty significant, even with the Swampum ranged resistance. Whereas the damage from the Commandos onto the Ogryns, irrelevant, because it's just piercing onto super heavy infantry. It doesn't do anything. What's going on up here? Commissar has just been on capping duty all game. Don't like that. Really bad use of the Commissar.
Go ahead, sir. Use your cover, man. Behind us.
That said, in terms of capping, wow, is the Commissar quite far ahead right now. Saibot has been pushed back to just having his natural requisition and his natural power. This is really bad for him. Nice use of the heavy weapons team. They've been capping all game. You know, wouldn't it be cool if units got a little bit of XP when they capped a point?
victory point is slipping away.
Because it feels bad that he's had this heavy weapons team and he's used it literally the best way he can. There's no vehicles on the field, the best thing to do with it is to cap points, and he doesn't get any reward for it. I'd like to see them get a little bit of XP for capping points. I mean, it would definitely snowball the game a little bit more, but I think that's fair. You know, it would encourage ratting playstyles where you intentionally don't attack the enemy, and you just constantly go around capping. I think you shouldn't get any XP for decapping, you have to fully cap the point, but still. So let's see what happens here. I mean, this is crazy to look at. You know, you've got 2 fully upgraded tier 3 orc units, and they're just scared. They're scared of these ogrins because they're just not a good counter. Look at this. The ogrins are level 1 for crying out loud. The commandos are literally throwing everything they've got at them. Loyal to the end being used. Kind of a questionable global to use against ogrins, but I mean, I guess it works. Unfortunate for Commissar, he does actually lose the bonehead straight away, but I mean, that's the price you got to pay to win the fights, I guess. He does win the fight. Now he needs to get one of his units down onto here, probably the last cannon. Maybe the last cannon's going to go for a bash. It is. So the hero is going to go down and cap. Ogrin's bashing is pretty nice. They get increased regen when they're in combat, so bashing the gens, they're going to get improved regen a little bit. And of course, you're giving them more XP. I'm surprised by how little XP they've got here. They really need that XP. I mean, they need it for the melee skill in case they come up against the Slugger Knob, but they also need it just for the higher HP, you know. Oh my god! It's Stormlord. Oh, this is going to be problematic, because the entire army of Saibot is infantry right now. Stormlord is going to be nuts. I mean, the question is, do you go for knobs? Or do you go for a tank? I don't know. I think to bust the Stormlord, Saibot is going to need rocks. If you can get a good rocks off, then you can destroy the supporting guardsmen that are repairing it. You know, because you'll do enough damage that you out-damage the speed at which they can reinforce, right? And you can aid that with your burner bombs from your commandos. He has 2 burner bombs. 2 burner bombs into a Lufterdaka can definitely wipe a Guardsman squad. And this is the problem. You've got to wipe the Guardsman squads whilst they're reinforcing constantly from the Stormlord if you want to kill the Stormlord. The Stormlord actually is due to get a nerf because it's such an amazing anti-infantry tool. So the intention would be that you use your vehicles to counter it. But the las cannons have such good damage and rate of fire, you can't even use vehicles. The Stormlord will literally he will slowly disrupt the vehicles. So now we've got Bolgrins as well. So these guys are even tankier than Ogrins. I mean, these guys are just the ultimate ranged piercing DPS tanks. I can't remember if they have passive damage resistance against ranged attacks. I feel like they might do, you know. And then they've got a disruptive ability when they're up close. So yeah, they're going to be very tough to kill. And they will definitely beat up the Slugger Boys 1v1 as well. So they're going to be a problem for Saibot. I mean, we've got a lot of great damage coming in right now. Shitloads of anti-vehicle. The problem for Saibot is he isn't getting rid of the supporting infantry. All he needs to do is throw a burner bomb. Has he got a burner bomb on them? I don't think so. Burner bomb the guardsman. Yeah, because as it stands right now, he has just bled like crazy. He actually just threw away his tank busters for no reason. And the IG player basically lost nothing because now they just repair it with the double guardsman. Jobs are good, and even the heavy weapons team can repair if it wants. So Sluggers and Bulgrins kind of got the same role here, the big scary melee infantry, capping the contested points at either extremity of the map. And everything is going to converge into the mid. Commissar should be using his shield to stop the Lufterdaka there. A little bit slow to react. Bulgrin's just going to get into melee, and the Commissar and the heavy weapons team are just ignoring the combat, just capping. I mean, I love seeing the heavy weapons team do that. I don't love seeing the Commissar doing that, though. That feels like such a waste. Look at these Bulgrins, though. They're just not dying. They don't die. Loyal to the end, use on them again. That's a waste. I don't know why he keeps using Law to the end of the Bulgrins. It's kind of ridiculous. They're not losing models anyway, so there's no point. You use that ability on Guardsmen because they lose models so fast and so frequent. See, this is the problem with the Stormlord, just suppressing the commandos. You got to split up your forces. Having some melee threats would not be terrible. But it's not like you can go for a Death Dread or anything. Just going to get wrecked by the last cannon of the Bulgrins and the last cannons on the Stormlord. And unfortunately, there's no way that Saibot has the money for Knobs. Knobs would be nice here. Bulgrins plus Stormlord is actually a really nice combo because even if they get the Knobs up close to the Stormlord without having the Stormlord suppress them, all you gotta do is disrupt them with the ability from the Bulgrins, which will knock them all over. Then you can get your Stormlord out of there. Hopefully, you know, like the frenzy on the Knobs will wear off, and then you're gonna win the match by suppressing them. So we've got some giant Orc AV flank coming up right now. Stormlord really needs to turn the fuck around, start suppressing this shit. Commissar should probably drop a flare on their ass. One of them can get tied up in melee. Again, Saibot, oh my god, man. Throw your burner bombs. Stop the Guardsmen from repairing. There's triple repair support right now. So they're repairing at 40 HP per second, and then he just suppresses the entire blob. The Bulgrins are in the back line. This is awful. This is a really poorly engaged situation. I'm starting to think this guy is Pig Killer. Because he kicked my ass with a Stormlord when I was playing Nids. He seems to like doing the fast tech into the Stormlord. I mean, it's obviously overpowered at the moment. However, I think this was definitely winnable for Saibot. It was a poorly managed series of engagements, and look at that, the Bulgrins kicking the sluggers' asses, even with triple commandos firing in on them. Just irrelevant to the big Bulgrins. And there we go, guys, another game where the Stormlord kicks ass. Can you see the models underneath? Yeah, you can. Dawn of War 2 game engine is rather bizarre. I mean, I guess there's a world in which Saibot still wins this by capping. You know, Commandos do have the 50% extra capping speed, and basically all of his army is infiltrating, so it is a possibility if the Commissar is just going to troll around the Stormlord hanging out in front of the base. God, Swarmlord. Not a Swarmlord. Ah, no, the VPs are gone for Saibot. No time for him. Too slow. No, I spoke too soon. He got the decap. And the commando's gonna go top. I mean, he needs to hurry up. Ah, no, this is over. He's gonna lose this VP before he can decap that. Yep. GG! A valiant attempt from Saibot, definitely missed players on both sides. The Commissar choosing to get the Chimera and not get Ogrins earlier on, I think was his fatal error. That said, Saibot kind of set him up to make the Ogrin play happen by going for blind tank busters, which you shouldn't do. Saibot, don't go for blind tank busters, come on, man. You don't know that he's going to get a Chimera and he can punish you for it. Don't let him be able to do that. And then Stormlord OP, I guess. But no, there were definitely ways to counter it. Still, it is pretty OP. Anyway, that is going to be all from your boy STD for this one. If you did enjoy, please leave a like and a comment to support me in my eternal battle against the Algo. And if you are wanting more content, exclusive content, then find me on Patreon. You can get your exclusive content there. Thank you for tuning in, folks. It's going to be all from your boy Torpid, signing out.